Okay, so today we're focusing on throwing cylinders, which is the basis of pretty much everything that we throw on the wheel. I have 1 pound of clay here that I'm going to be using just for a very small cylinder. Not a whole lot of shaping that's going to go on, just straight up and down. Before I start, I want to make sure that I massage my clay into my wheel head. That way I ensure that no water is going to get up underneath the clay and the wheel head and create a layer that's going to just potentially get the clay to just slide right off the wheel. Lastly, I just want to pound that down, making sure that that's really not going to go anywhere. Next, I want to get my hands wet to start developing slip. Notice that the wheel is going pretty quickly, medium high to high. I want to make sure that my right arm stays very well braced. With just one hand, you can start to get that into center. That's why you want to make sure that you're very well braced while throwing. That clay is going to want to move you around, but you have to tell it that you are moving it around. Next, I'm coning up and coning down, which is basically taking clay from the bottom, making a tower or a spire. This is helping homogenize the clay again, as well as helping me get the clay into center. One thing I want to make sure to not do is release very quickly, make any sudden movements. If I need to take my hands off my piece, I want to do it nice and slow and easy. That way I'm not fighting against the clay and myself. Now when I go to push this down, I'm going to use this chunk of my hand right here over the top side like this, bracing with my right hand, and then I'm going to press down, driving that clay into the wheel head and into my right hand. My right hand or my right arm is very well braced, making sure that the clay is not going to go anywhere that I don't tell it. If you start to feel any friction, maybe clay is coming off, your clay ball is getting a little bit hot, you need to add more slip or more water. I'm going to cone up again. Everything's slippy, lubed up, and then cone back down. Alright, now that I've done that a couple times, it's getting pretty well in center. I need to make sure that I do the last little bit to really ensure that it's in center well. I like to call these little micro movements. It's nothing drastic. I'm really using the muscles in my hand and my fingers to create just these minuscule movements to get the smallest undulations and unevenness out of my clay ball. That way when I go to drop my center and open up, everything remains on center as best it can be. Now this is going to be, let me get this a little bit lower so it can be a little bit wider. Alright, that's feeling pretty good. It's not knocking my hands around. Next thing I need to do now is find the actual center on the top to open up. I'm going to keep my wheel speed as is for right now. Make sure that that's nice and slippy. I'm going to use both my thumbs to open this up. I'm going to let it glide over the top. Make sure that it's not dancing around too crazy. Once I feel it's in center very well, or as best I can, I'm going to introduce pressure, move a little bit quicker, and if it's starting to dry out, just slowly remove my hands, add a little bit of water, keep it slippy, and then continue driving down. I want to make sure not to go too far, too fast with this. I don't want to go straight through to the wheel head, so I'm going to stop and check with my needle tool. Right down through the center. Drive that down until I touch the wheel head. It stops. You should have enough clay material on the bottom for it to stand up on its own. Put my finger down until I reach the inside floor. Brace against my needle tool. Take it out. Compare against that side. And that's how much material I have left on the bottom of my piece. I want just a little bit less material, so I'm going to compress and drive down just a little bit more. If you're checking with that needle tool, you really need to make sure that you compress to fill in that hole, or else it can become a crack. Just like a needle on a record. Start from this upper inside wall, sort of giving a little bit of pressure, pushing out, and then you start to drive your finger down, and you'll feel that clay start to go all the way down to the bottom and then right into the center. Now with both my thumbs, I'm going to open up my hole a little bit further. And all I'm doing with both thumbs is pushing out like this. Really concentrating on the bottom to push that clay out. Next thing I want to do, I want to make sure that I get this little ridge and this ridge combined together. So I'm going to add a little bit of pressure and move them together slowly. If you go too fast, you might find that this top part rips off. I just want to make sure that I utilize all of my clay as best I can. Any clay boogers, I'm just going to throw them away. So next I need to compress the floor of my piece. I'm going to use this wooden tool, this wooden rib, and I'm just going to add a little bit of pressure, making sure not to go directly over the center. It'll start to dance around and get kind of funky on you. And just make sure that that's really nice and compressed. That I've gotten rid of any peaks or valleys on the inside. It's looking good, feeling good. You also want to compress to make sure that you don't get any S-cracks going on later on in the process, either through drying or when you fire it. Not compressing the floor of your piece is one of the main reasons why you do develop S-cracks. Alright, so that's feeling good. Add some more slip over my piece. Now I'm going to make my first pull. I'm going to do this with my thumb and my middle finger of my left hand. I'm going to also be bracing with my right hand and helping it along. Taking material from the center as best I can, walking that all the way to the inside before I pull up, squeezing, and now pulling up, and reducing the amount of pressure as I go, make my way towards the top. I want to make sure that I compress after every pull. Compress my rim. This ensures that the rim stays stable, as that can start to become the thinnest part, the fastest. And do it all over again. Now, the taller this gets, the more you might need to back off the speed of your wheel. For right now, for me, this is feeling pretty alright. You want to make sure that you work with a wheel speed that is comfortable for you. Just going to collar that in just a little bit. I'm going to back off my wheel speed just a little bit. I'm going to use this wooden rib to even out the wall thickness of my cylinder. If there's any thick and thin spots, this helps to even those out. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Lastly, I need to get the rest of that water that's on the floor, on the bottom of my piece. So I'm going to put my sponge on the end of my needle tool with my wheel still spinning around and just get that excess water out. just compress the floor one more time before I call them done. And then to get any throw lines off the outside or the inside, you can use this, your metal rib. Make sure that's got a little bit of water on it but not sopping wet. And then just very lightly let the side run over it. And you can erase those throw lines. You get a nice smooth outside surface. If that's what you're looking for, some people actually like the throw lines and want to keep them in, and that's totally fine. And that's looking pretty good. And that is how you throw a cylinder.